Hello and welcome to DawnNews English. I'm Niha Dagia, and today we will be talking about the situation in Gaza and if the world can do anything to stop what is happening. The Israeli bombardment has been increasing. Around 25,000 tons of explosives have been dropped on Gaza since October 7th, and there is no sign of ceasefire yet. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is adamant to continue the assault. So what's next, and is there anything the world can do to stop him? Joining us today is Pakistan's ambassador to the United Nations, Munir Akram, whose speech at the UN General Assembly was very well received. Welcome to the show, Ambassador. We're seeing an increase in bombardment with very little supplies or aid going in. UN agencies have been holding multiple press conferences every day, and they're also issuing multiple statements every day. And yet there is no impact. And this has also led to resignations by UN officials. So, sir, my question to you, since you are at the UN, is how is the organization dealing with the frustrations within due to its limited ability to take effective action?
I think the sentiment within the UN is basically across the board. Everyone is in some measure or the other condemnatory of the Israeli actions that have been taken, the bombardment that is continuing. As you know, the official who resigned has called it a genocide. Many Muslim countries, Arab countries have also called it a genocide. I think if one reads the Genocide Convention, this would fit into a definition of genocide. So there is widespread concern about what the Israelis are doing and condemnation. But as you have mentioned, the Security Council is paralyzed because there are certain powers on the Council who have prevented the call for a ceasefire as such. And therefore the Security Council not been able to act. But the General Assembly has acted. The General Assembly adopted the resolution which the Arab and OIC countries put forward. And that resolution has called for a humanitarian truce leading to a cessation of hostilities. It has called for humanitarian assistance to flow and the channels of humanitarian assistance to be open. And it has also opposed the Israeli effort to displace the Palestinian population by pushing them to the south or to push them into Egypt. And those are the main provisions of the General Assembly resolution. And what we are trying now is to press the Secretary General and the United Nations organizations to press for the implementation of this resolution as such. So the UN General Assembly has spoken, even if the Security Council has been unable to speak. So that's the international consensus which is emerging now around the resolution which was adopted with 121 votes. We know that many countries which did not support the resolution share our opinion in their conscience, shares our opinion, but their political positions are constrained by their strategic and political relationships with Israel and with Israel's friends. So that's
even during a genocide?
Well, that's the point. This is what we are asking. This is what I asked in the other day in one of the debates. I said, please examine your conscience. This is genocide, and we must call it out, and we must press Israel to stop its campaign of bombardment and military action against helpless Palestinian civilians as such. So we are continuing to press. That's the best we can do. But enforcement action can be taken by the Security Council. But ultimately, if the Security Council fails, we will have to see what the General Assembly can do. and we will go back to the General Assembly and ask for action by the General Assembly.
Sir, when you talk about the UN General Assembly, could you perhaps elaborate for our viewers what real power does the United Nations have?
You know, the General Assembly has residual powers in the maintenance of international peace and security, especially when the Security Council is unable to act as such. There is what we call the Resolution on Uniting for Peace, which has been used in the past to establish a UN peacekeeping force. Even a UN fighting force has been established in the case of Korea, for example. So the General Assembly has powers. The question is, you know, how much support we can gather for a decisive enforcement action by the General Assembly. We will try that. There are major powers who will oppose it, but we will try to see what we can get through the General Assembly, even if the Security Council is unable to.
And what would these actions look like?
I mean, I can just give you examples at the moment because these are not formulated yet. We are in the process of thinking through some of the things. The OIC is calling a summit in Saudi Arabia has called a summit of the OIC on I think the 12th of November. So we will see what comes out of what OIC countries can agree on at the summit level to propose. But in my view, you can talk about a oil export embargo. You could talk about termination of trade relations. You could talk about termination of civil aviation. And you know, several such actions can be taken in order to pressurize and penalize Israel for the actions that it is taking. So it's a question of whether the OIC and Arab countries can agree on a set of actions, and then we will bring these actions to the General Assembly and see if we can get them through the General Assembly. You know, so this is the diplomatic campaign that will have to be mounted in order to get some of these measures adopted by the General Assembly in order to penalize and pressurize Israel. So, you know, let's see what we can get through.
So you mentioned the OIC meeting on November 12th. Today is the 6th of November. 10,000 people are already dead. In fact, an Israeli official told an Israeli newspaper that the death toll is 20,000 or around. And the Israeli bombardment has been increasing. There is telecommunication blackouts. Don't you think that 12th of November is a little too late? And also, do you think that Arab and Muslim countries are kind of playing on a back foot right now? There is a lack of urgency. They're not as proactive as we see other countries. We're seeing Western countries recall ambassadors.
I think some of the Arab countries have also done so. Some of the Islamic countries have also done so. So I think this is going to be a kind of international move. And I don't think we should sort of distinguish between who's done what. But, you know, Chile and Bolivia and others, have taken actions. We hope that Western European countries will take actions. And of course, ultimately, the decisive power in this case is with the United States. And the United States has gradually come around to calling for at least a humanitarian truce or a humanitarian pause, whatever they call it. But, the Israelis have not agreed. So we have to continue mounting the pressure on the Israelis to stop this genocidal action.
So since we're talking about pressure, your speech at the UN General Assembly was very well received. It kind of, it came across as something that the entire world, perhaps not the leaders, but the public was wanting to say. The public resonated with it. Seeing that you are the envoy of Pakistan, and Pakistan already does not recognize Israel, what efforts do you think Pakistan can make to help the people of Gaza at the moment?
As you might have seen, we've taken the lead in actually defending and propagating the Palestinian position here. And I think we have done so quite successfully in articulating the position of the Palestinians and proposing a number of actions, procedural actions here at the UN, between the Security Council, the General Assembly, the OIC, etc. And we continue to be involved as a lead country among the Arab and OIC countries to find ways of trying to bring this this unfortunate and tragic war to an end. So we will continue that effort. It reflects the views not only of the Pakistani people, but it reflects the views of the entire Islamic world as such. So we will continue. Inshallah, we hope that this pressure will result in containing the Israelis and hopefully bring this conflict to an end. But we are limited in our diplomatic efforts. We will do our best.
So my last question to you is, do you see a ceasefire?
Eventually, this thing has to stop. It cannot continue as such. I don't know exactly when we will get the ceasefire, but somewhere down the line, I think the pressure will mount. International opinion is very strong, and the Israelis, in the final analysis, they will have to weigh the cost of this campaign. So hopefully, if there was any reasonable government in Tel Aviv, they would listen, they would see the cost benefit of this war and bring it to an end. But these, unfortunately, the Israeli leaders at this time, these are extremists, and this is the problem.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us. This is it for now. This is Niha Dagia. I'm signing off for DawnNews English.